So many times in life, when we have a challenge or an obstacle that we're faced with, we think that if we remove that thing, that life will be great. And yes, temporarily, and that's the easiest typically way to go. But I want to offer you something else, and I'll give you an example of this. When we just remove the thing, say it's a food, we really struggle to not overeat pretzels. And whenever pretzels are in our house, we overeat. So we just think getting rid of pretzels forever, that is the best thing I can do. And then, like, I'm great, I'm not an overeater anymore. Or maybe in a work situation, there's a coworker you can't stand, and every time she's around, you turn into just like this crazy, nasty person. Or maybe it's a significant other or whatever it is. And we think, let's just get rid of that person and let's just get rid of the pretzels and we're good to go, right? And like I was saying, I want to offer you that you could do that. And in some situations, you may want to. But I think when we do that, we're missing out on an opportunity to build a skill, to grow in some way, to be the person that we truly want to be, regardless of what is around us. And the reason that I started thinking about this, because my daughter, I have a 9-year-old, she was telling me a story about, I can't remember if it was aftercare school, where she was having like a disagreement with another girl. And she was saying, oh, it's taken care of now, Mom. They just set it up so we won't work together anymore. And I was like, well, that's good for you right now. And I'm sure you feel like that's great because you're 9. But you're not learning the skill to work with other people that you don't necessarily get along with. Whatever it is about that girl that was driving you crazy, you're not learning how to adapt, or weren't even given any support or tools or skills to learn how to adapt when you're around people like that. She's going to go to work, she's going to be in other classes, and there's always going to be people that she doesn't work well with or doesn't agree with, doesn't get along with. All of us still experience that as adults, but we have to learn to. And that is what I'm kind of getting at in this video here. You can apply that to coworkers, to school situation, or to food, because I hear people say all the time, I just don't keep snacks in my house because I'll eat them. And that way I just don't eat snacks. The problem there too is then we go into a restaurant, we go to a party, we go to a lunchroom full of cakes and cookies, and we usually overeat them because we've never built the skills, the strategies, the tools to not do that. So I think sometimes, sure, just get rid of the thing. If it's like easier, it's not a big deal. But I think a lot of the time, then we're not getting to the root of what's actually going on. Another reason this is super important, not only because you're missing out on like a skill and a growth opportunity and really stepping into your full empowerment and the power you have in your life and the control that you do have in your life, but if we just continue to pull out the things that like are causing us issues, we spend our entire life doing that. We spend our entire life trying to avoid the food, avoid the person, avoid the program, this, that. Oh, I'm going to feel a certain way. I got to avoid all these things. Oh, I can't go there. They're going to have cookies. Like, who wants to live like that? If you know that you can be around any of the people, any of the things like I mentioned before, and still show up how you want to, that is freedom. So what I encourage people to do instead is kind of take a look at, how can I show up as the best version of me, the way that I want to, no matter what, even with these circumstances around me, even with the food that I'm tempted to overeat, even with these people that maybe drive me crazy and I don't work that well with. We have to look at, why is that this is driving me so crazy and I'm struggling to show up in the way that I really want to. And then we have to learn the skill of in both situations, whether it's food, whether it's people, whatever it is, of allowing the urge and the craving. The urge in either situation is to flip out, to act like the person that we don't want to be, and sit with it and kind of look at, what is this feeling or emotion that's coming up for me that I am not willing to feel? So I'm acting a certain way where I don't want to, whether it's overeating, whether it's yelling at someone, which is a situation of my daughter. She was being nasty. She was yelling or whatever she was doing because she didn't know how to just feel the emotion that she was having, feel the feeling she was having, and sit with it and let the pretzels be there and let this girl act the way she was acting, and then still ask herself the question. So that's the first piece. We decide that we want to do this. We learn to sit and feel with our emotions, which is just identifying where it is in our body, labeling it, getting really comfortable just sitting with it, because all it is an uncomfortable feeling. It's a vibration in our body. And when we can sit and we can label it, we can locate it, we can identify if it has a color, if it has a sound, we can ask if it's trying to tell us anything. And literally, we need to do this for a couple of minutes, and typically it will dissipate. We can make a habit of doing that and just be okay with the discomfort of emotions in our body. That's the first piece. But then the second piece is asking ourselves the question, taking a breath. You have to take a breath and like get yourself to a regulated state. Because when you are dysregulated, when emotion is high, logic is low, we're not typically able to do this. But when we get to that place where we can ask ourselves the question after we've taken a breath and like maybe gone in another room for a minute, how do I want to show up here no matter what? and continue to breathe through it even when you're in the situation. I know when you're with really challenging people that this can be super hard, but I like to always say to myself or think to myself, I can let the people be the people. They can do whatever they want to do. That is their situation. My situation is how I'm going to react to it, how I'm going to think about it, how I'm going to feel, and how I'm going to react to it. So somebody could literally, as long as they are not physically harming me, they can pretty much say anything around me. And I can do exactly what I'm talking about here and not most of the time show up in a place in a way that I don't want to. And when you have kids, or even working, living with a sibling or anything like that, I feel like, or even a marriage, that could bring out sometimes the worst of you, the best too, but also the worst of you. But when you can practice this and you can breathe and you can relax and let yourself kind of feel more regulated, and then ask yourself, how do I want to be thinking, feeling, and showing up here? And then making the habit, building the practice of doing it, that is when it does not matter if you're working in a project with someone you don't get along with, if you have the food around you that you're tempted to overeat. Because if when you've done those two things and you've practiced them and you've built that habit, you don't have to remove the thing anymore. And that's when you really step back into your power and have so much more control over your life. You're never going to have all the control, but so much more control over your life. And we're not giving it away to the people and to the things, whether that's the snacks or whether that's the other people. People are always going to be people. Food that we have a hard time around is always going to be around. But how can we learn to show up the way that we want to with these things? And that is where you really can feel fully like empowered and confident in your life. So that is what I help people do as a coach, kind of more in depth. That's very high level. So if you're ever interested in a session, I help you work through what you're going through. Click the link in my bio and you can book a session there. If you have questions on this or anything specific that you're struggling with, drop it in the comments and I will cover it in another video.